chat sessions. Is sugar bad for you? Is our topic this evening. Is sugar bad? So if you're on the StreamYard, so if you're joining from the Healthy Well Women group, or you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, give StreamYard permission so I can see your name. I can see who's commenting. And if you're on Instagram, don't be shy. Come and join us too. I've got that rosy glow, like where you're cold after a workout, but your face is still like 200 degrees. And I wanted to talk more about, is sugar bad for you? I done a post earlier today about, should sugar be demonized? And there's a few comments saying, yes, it should. But ultimately, sugar is a bit like everything as humans. It's about how much we have of one thing. So let me know your thoughts. What's your thoughts on sugar? Have you tried to cut sugar out of your diet? Are you trying to eliminate it altogether, or just cut down on how much you have? Because when we talk about the sugar, it's the easy go-to things are the cakes and the biscuits, right? The sweets, the cakes, the biscuits. They're the things you think of straight up for sugar. But it is in so many of our foods now. It's so many processed foods. And I just wanted to cover off some of the facts around sugar. All right, let's get into it. And remember, Healthy Well Women group, if you're catching on the replay, hashtag replay, let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this. Okay, so let's get into it. So on my post earlier, I spoke about sugar. We need it. We need it for our brains. Glucose is what helps our brains to function. But the trouble with sugar is we're just having too much of it. And the data from Public Health England spoke about the UK consume on average, I think it's 58 grams, 58 grams of sugar per day, which is equivalent to 14 teaspoons of sugar, where actually the recommended limits by the World Health Organization is 30 grams, around 7 teaspoons. So half of what we are actually consuming on a day-to-day basis. So whatever you're having, you ultimately want to half it. And it's not about eliminating it from your diet, it's about how you can reduce it. And you might be thinking, like I used to, I've got a savoury tooth, I'm not even eating the chocolate. Well, you can imagine the people who are eating chocolate and the crisps and how much they're actually having. Because yes, you heard me say crisps there. So sugar is in a lot of our crisps. It's in a lot of our foods added. And you will see things say no added sugar, no added sugar. But I thought I'd just get a few products that to show you. So Heinz beans. So main ingredient, bean, tomatoes, water, then sugar. So sugar is number 4 in a tin of beans. Right, so you do get I think low sugar alternatives for these, and I know many people say, yeah, they're disgusting, right? So if you want to reduce your sugar, then you got to think about these options. So how much per this can? There is 8.7 grams of sugar in this can. So 8.7 grams in this little can. So if you were to have this little can, 8.7 grams, right? So that's almost a third of your daily allowance of sugar in this alone. And then say you want to have a wrap, maybe you're having some sort of quesadilla beanie wrap. And this per wrap is 1.4 grams of sugar. So you can see how you can quite easily clock it up. Now, what about if you want a little HP sauce on top of your beans? Now, your HP sauce, let's have a look at the ingredients. Tomatoes, vinegar, molasses, glucose, fructose syrup, spirit, vinegar, sugar, dates. So this is ultimately sugar on top of sugar. So everything it mentions there, molasses is a type of sugar. Glucose, fructose syrup is one of the worst types of sugar. It's highly processed. It's what's thought to cause a lot of weight gain. And then it's got vinegar again and sugar again. So how much per serving? 15 grams. Make sure you measure. 3.5 grams of sugar in 15 grams. So already between those 3 products. And what about if you want a little bit of spicy sauce? So a bit of spicy sauce, 5 mils is a portion, 0.3 grams of sugar for 5 mils. But again, if you look at the ingredients, it's water, vinegar, sugar being a third ingredient. So again, third ingredient, sugar. Then if you look, what about pickles? If you just sometimes have fancy a little bit of cheese and pickle, maybe you have a pickle out of the jar. These are sweet and mild ones. A pickle and a sweet and mild vinegar with sugar and sweetener. So here we are, we've got it creeping in again. Pickled onion, water, spirit vinegar, sugar is, what's that, third on the list again. Then they've got a sweetener, saccharin, which is I think about 400 times sweeter than sugar. So it will reduce the calories, but we still don't really know what these sweeteners impact on our health is. 4.3 grams of sugar per 21 grams. So yeah, again, so it's in your pickles, it's in your beans, it's in your hot sauce, it's in your HP sauce, and it's in your wraps. Sugar is literally in everything. So how can you possibly eliminate it? Well, you know the quick ones around the cakes, the biscuits, the ones are obvious, the fizzy drinks are obvious. But for these things, like I say, for beans, you get a reduced sugar option. Pickles, it'd be looking to see that something doesn't actually say. So looking at the back, so looking at what it actually says in it. So like I said, they've had to say with sugar and sweetener on the back. So really it is getting into your labels. And again, I think they do a reduced sugar, reduced salt sauce and the wraps as well. So it's really about you getting into the labels and understanding what's in your food. And this might become a bit of a minefield and you might find it a bit overwhelming, but really think about all the ways that you might not be realizing that sugar is coming into your diet, because ultimately we're all consuming too much sugar and that's impacting us in terms of, we talk about diabetes all the time, the chronic health conditions, and we also talk about cancer and cancer being fed by sugar. And you might have heard that one, you might not have. Some people like to eliminate sugar altogether when they hear like cancer fed by sugar. But the truth is, with cancer, what happens is it's hungry. Cancer is a hungry disease. It starts off creating its own blood supply, its own nutrient line, and that's why people often lose weight, because cancer takes all the nutrients from the person and a lot of calories. And when they are doing tests and scans and things, and they put in radioactive sugar because it illuminates the zone of the cancer. And that's why you will hear people say cancer sugar fed, but actually it's kind of glucose, it's what feeds their brain, and the cancer likes that high energy, so that's why it's illuminated. So it's not necessarily per se that it feeds it, but it is definitely a factor if you are overweight, for example. So you're overweight, you've got diabetes, and then these are all things that are going to lead to kind of chronic illnesses and higher risk of things like cancer. And like I say, the obvious ones are omitting the fizzy drinks. The obvious ones are omitting the cakes, the biscuits, the chocolate. But when there's so much hidden sugars, what can you do to minimize it? Well, as I said, we can look at eating whole foods. Whole foods, for example. So if I'm just going to grab a banana, okay, now this is going to fill me more, one banana, than say just grabbing some pickles and cheese out of a jar, and this is going to be better for me. So think about the things you can do to have whole foods, whole fruit, whole vegetable, things that aren't being processed, because it's all the processed food where all the stuff's been added to preserve it, but also been added to that enjoyment of the sweetness, right? So you want a bit more of it. So think about what you can do around whole foods. And then, as I said, getting into your food labels. Like if you know there's sugar in something and you're taking that choice, then cool. If you're like, I'm taking that choice, but because I really like that thing, then look at actually what the serving is and measure your food, measure it. So this is 5 mils, stick to 5 mils with the HP 15 grams. So stick to 15 grams of salt. Sauce, even 15 grams of sauce, and measure your food. And that is also another way to ensure that you're decreasing the amount of sugar intake, because if you're just chucking this on, chances are you're at 2 or 3 portions, depending on how much you like. And think about if you've got kids, because I see it all the time with kids, with ketchup covers everything, right? So think about measuring the portion and limiting how much you're having of these foods. And then the next thing would be around cooking at home. Ultimately, if you're cooking at home, you've got control. You've got control about what's going in it, so you know what's in it. So think about cooking at home. So that's my 3 main tips in terms of reducing sugar. So don't stress yourself out by trying to eliminate sugar altogether, but think about what you can do to reduce it. Because as I said, it's in the wraps, it's in the sauces, it's in the pickles, it's in the beans. Yes, it's naturally occurring in the fruit, but you're going to get some sort of nutrients from the fruit. Yes, you'll get a bit of nutrients from the beans, but not a whole heap. So the key thing is eliminating is too hard to do. So think about reducing the amount of sugar you have, and you can do that by increasing your awareness about what's in the food you're buying and measuring the portion sizes of these things, looking at the bottles and reading the labels. Now, I did mention about sweeteners and the unknown impact. What we do know is too much sugar isn't good for us. What we do know is glucofructose syrup, that's in this little one, it's a little nasty, is a highly processed sugar and is deemed as one of the bigger factors around obesity and diabetes. So anything that's got fructose syrup in it, avoid. Agave syrup, again, another one, avoid. It is sold as a health product, but any kind of sugar that's reduced down to become a highly concentrated syrup is deemed worse for us than actually sugar. In terms of the artificial sugars, as I say, the studies are still mixed. The what they're saying in the science world is there's no proof that these scientific alternatives like aspartame, I can't even say it, oxalate, however you say it, are negative, and ones like stevia. However, there is also research coming out around actually what is the impact on our gut health, what is the impact on our taste buds, our gut health, which has sugar receptors, and the thought is that they are thinking, oh, I've got sugar coming into the body. So what I'm going to do is just store the sugar that's in my system, store it as fat because I don't need it right now because I've got more sugar coming in, but then that sugar never comes. And then as a result, people end up overeating other sweet stuff, or they end up overindulging in other foods because they're not getting the calories they thought they were. So it's thought to cause a bit of trickery in the gut health and a bit of trickery in the mind too. But I'm going to do more on that tomorrow. I'm going to do a post around the different types of sweeteners, how sweet they are, and a bit about what the science is coming out around gut health. So you can make an informed decision if you choose to avoid these things. Like I say, stevia is like, yeah, it's great, it's a natural plant, but we don't know the impact it has on our gut health. And certainly things like, people switching to pea protein is another example where there's nothing that says it's not good for you. I know personally it doesn't work for my digestive system. So I'm going to give you guys the information so you can make the informed choices. So to recap, sugar isn't necessarily bad for us. It's just we're having too much of it. Now, if we have too much of it, we get the obesity, we get the diabetes, and yes, those are likely to make you get chronic illnesses and things like cancers too. So you can help by controlling it. And don't get me wrong, you can do everything right and still get cancer. You can do everything wrong and not get cancer. But there's evidence is there around obesity, diabetes being factors in chronic illnesses such as diabetes, such as heart disease, such as cancers. So it definitely is there. So think about the choices you want to make. And like say, elimination, it doesn't have to be, it's about reducing how much, because we're all thought to be having about 13 teaspoons of sugar a day when actually the upper limit should be 7. So really check your labels. As I say, sugar is literally in every product, the beans, pickles, sauces, wraps, is everywhere. And you can take control back by making a conscious choice and measuring your portions, reading your labels, and also opting for your whole fruits, your whole veg, and cooking at home so you've got control. All right, I hope that was helpful. Pop me a note. Let me know if that was of value to you. Let me know how you feel about sugar, if you try to eliminate it, or indeed if you try to reduce it. Let me know where your relationship is with sugar. Heidi, I know what yours is. So I'm going to be popping you a note soon. So yeah, let me know your relationship with sugar and if you're trying to reduce it or if you try to eliminate it before and how well that's worked for you. Like I say, cake and biscuits is the obvious one, but I personally don't eat those a lot, but they are the obvious one if you do try and cut down and reduce them. All right, team, thank you for joining. Appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow for more late night chats with Julie. Take care.